So we'll start in one moment, but as we prepare to begin, reflecting on any experiences you're having in the community that might be good to talk about, process in the Sangha, questions about anything to do with our essential elements or guiding principles or the infrastructure that we're continuing to develop. So just reflecting on, what it is that you're experiencing, and it doesn't have to be all bad either. We can also use this time to talk about and celebrate some of the successes that we're having in the transition back to in-person meetings and the ongoing successes we're having in the online sanghas. And so just knowing that this is a time for the community to meet with me as I represent World Services, Refuge Recovery World Services. And a reminder to anybody that stumbled in here that's not sure where they're at, this is not a Refuge Recovery meeting. This is I think at one point we were going to call it town hall, kind of opportunity for the town, the Sangha, to meet with the nonprofit organization that's supporting the Sangha, Refuge Recovery World Services. So I'm here to represent and to communicate with you about anything that you'd like to talk about regarding Refuge Recovery this evening. And the floor is open for questions, comments, clarifications, complaints, whatever you'd like to use the time for. And would work best if you raise your hand so that I can call on you down in the, I think, reactions or maybe under the participants. I see a hand from one co-host, Vanessa. Go ahead and jump in, get the conversation going. Vanessa.
Thank you, Noah. Now that Zoom has a waiting room, is it still necessary to lock meetings? Locking meetings sometimes creates issues for those trying to rejoin who have poor internet connections and are often dropped from the meeting.
Was it ever necessary?
Yeah,
was that something that we were doing in order to try to avoid Zoom bombing?
Yeah, so in the beginning there was no waiting room, and there were a lot, and this is as I understand it, I'm no Zoom techie, but there was no waiting room, so anyone can bomb. So we started locking meetings, and then now all Zoom meetings have waiting room, but some people are still in the habit of locking meetings.
Right.
So I didn't know, like, logistically what that, because for me, I have shoddy internet. Most of the people in my region have bad internet, so none of us lock meeting. But then if I go to a meeting out of the area and it's locked, then I hope I know someone in the meeting, because I can text them and say, please let me back in. So I didn't know where we stood on that.
Well, my own, I don't know that World Services needs to make any sort of proclamation about this, but I can share my own feeling about it, which is that people should be welcome to enter and exit Refuge Recovery meetings late, enter late or leave early, just like we would in person. Like if you gotta go, you gotta go. You're running late, you're still welcome to come, even if you're running late. So if people are going to lock the Zoom rooms, then they should definitely be very attentive to anybody in the waiting room, rather than somehow keeping them in the waiting room for too long. So again, I feel like it would be a group decision rather than a dictate from World Services. Each group would have to take a group conscience how they want to handle the waiting room. But the way you asked it, I think, was, is it necessary? Doesn't seem like it's a necessary thing. And probably we will continue occasionally to get Zoom bombed. That probably will happen, either by the sort of random, kind of Zoom bomber, or a disgruntled member who will get on and disrupt the meeting. And that's something that's going to happen both online and in person, and it's totally okay to ask someone to leave if they're being disruptive in any way. I hope that answers it.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just throw something out there about that?
Sure.
In the meetings that I chair on the other side, when you lock the room, and so once the meeting's locked, if somebody comes to the waiting room, you don't know that they're there. So you will not know that someone's there if the meeting is locked. It will tell you that the meeting is locked and you don't sit in the waiting room. So because you were kind of saying like be attentive on it. But from my knowledge, and that's why, like someone had said, I always get texts from people like they'll go knock knock, like let me in. And I had the Zoom bombers as well. And so that's why we started locking it. I think if they want in, they're going to get in regardless. But just FYI, once it's locked, there is no waiting room.
So then if it's locked and there's no waiting room, but then somebody texts you, how do you find them? You have to unlock it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just go down to security and unlock it. And then when I see them come in, we lock it back. And another reason that I started doing that, and I'd only had one Zoom bomber, but some people were kind of worried, like if they were in the middle of a deep share and then someone came in and interrupted the share, because they were saying how it's disruptive, but you can turn the doorbell off so not everybody can hear it when they come in and out. But that was another reason that I always would keep it locked, was just in case somebody was really, sharing about something and they, wouldn't get interrupted, or if they didn't, maybe it was more women than men and a man came in and, just for whatever reason. That was one of the main reasons that we still lock it a quarter after. So I just wanted to throw that out there about the waiting room.
Yeah. Well, so my own, again, each group should have a discussion about this, and the meeting can take a group conscience about this. It is one of our guiding principles that all are welcome. And it doesn't say anywhere that all are welcome as long as they show up on time. So my sense is that we should do our best to create a welcoming environment with a very low barrier for people to enter our meetings. And you certainly don't want somebody coming for the first time, running a few minutes late and not being able to get in. So access and inclusion are high on our priorities from my perspective for Refuge Recovery.
And I can lob questions at you all night. So if you ever don't have a hand up, I'll be here. I muted you, Noah. I am sorry.
How dare you? Kelly, go ahead.
How should I word this? Yeah, I get that message that you just said there. All are welcome. So what is the best way, I guess, to protect yourself against like predatory behavior for man or woman, or they, them, whoever? What is your best advice of that?
I don't, certainly I can't, represent World Services, our nonprofit, and make some sort of proclamation about the best way to protect ourselves. It is one of the dilemmas of peer-led groups that doesn't have professional facilitators, where we are all in the position where we have to use our own caution and our own discernment and our own boundaries, knowing that there will absolutely be predatory behavior in recovery rooms and recovery programs. And this idea that well, we're all here, and hey, we're Buddhists and we're practicing. We're going to have sex addicts that are seeking help in refuge recovery, who are still a bit in their addiction, and that's going to come out sideways at times in the community. And so it's just very important. I don't have an answer really, Kelly, other than like with the question, each one of us needs to be asking ourselves that question and using that healthy sense of openness balanced with a healthy sense of like caution and skepticism around people's motives sometimes.
Okay.
Because it is part of the reality, I think, in all communities, and probably especially in recovery communities where there are very wounded people. There's some of some of the healthiest, most well-adjusted recovery people you'll ever meet will be in refuge, and then also some very unrecovered people you will also meet that are still acting out in some ways.
So okay. I appreciate that answer. How does one, I probably already know the answer, but I guess I want to hear it from you as a group conscience, but I want to get so badly to the place where the human experience is not attached to me. I want to be unattached, but not numb, but I've been through this experience before, but it's taking over like it's fresh. But my true self knows that I'm safe. My physical body is just continuing to react because of unhealed whatever. I guess I just see the fine line between knowing that the true self is safe already, like this physiological chemical reaction in my body is just the human experience of responding. I think just more meditation is my answer, really, and more time.
On some level, yeah, and you knew you had your own answer, and it's the longer we maintain our recovery and our abstinence and learn to sit with it and learn to see that we are being flooded by old feelings, old memories, old traumatic experiences that are thoughts and feelings, but that feel so intense and so and you'll get more and more space around that the longer you practice, and less reactivity and more ability to respond will happen in our recovery for sure. And it takes months and years of dedicated practice to get much room around it. And really, boundaries, like that is what it is. It's boundaries. But even with the best boundaries, sometimes we're going to get so fooled or seduced or conned, by someone who's actually in some predatory behavior rather than the good story that they tell and presentation that they have. And it takes a while to kind of figure out like, oh, I was actually just being manipulated and I didn't see it until I saw it.
Okay, and now that we see it,
Yep.
And now that we have boundaries, and if boundaries continue to be crossed, doesn't matter how many new accounts you make, doesn't matter if I pull social media or they show up at your fucking door, because this shit is not fucking anonymous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me catastrophizing. I just need to stay in the present moment.
Yeah.
So
well, and with all of those, yeah, it is possible. And my own sense is, anonymous or not anonymous, that I don't think that would help us that much. But you're right. Like, yeah, your last name is on your screen, right? And so easier for somebody who wants to find your social media and all of that to find it. So that might be something right from the beginning to say like, oh, I don't need to put my full name on the screen. I want to actually have a bit more.
Is that what we're talking about? Okay, so boundaries as in, you're right, I could actually prepare myself for a more private.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. It's coming together.
Yeah, being a bit more cautious.
Yes.
And
Okay,
yeah,
just so that I can be like, here you go, next female or male, here you go, you take this. And then you know what I mean? Do you see the tumbleweed? It's like, okay, I'll blow it that way. That's fine. I can take care of myself. I'm safe right here by myself, just to let it go to the next person.
I don't totally follow that part.
That's okay. I'm just saying, letting this person do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yeah. Am I not helping to, how do you say?
Like enabling something?
Am I enabling this?
Yeah. And
how far is my boundary gonna go? I'm not angry, I'm sorry, I'm just here.
Well, I feel like I've answered it in a general way as much as I can for now, but also Kelly, I'm happy to speak with you. If this is something that's happening in Refuge at this time, I do want to know about it. And there's limitations to what anybody can do in this all are welcome thing, but I would like to know about it and support you in whatever way that I can.
I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me, everyone.
Richard, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm sorry I was a little bit late. So I have some questions about the new script that's out with some of the language. I don't know who to address this to. No, I guess maybe you, but other people that created the script might chime in. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. Good.
The standard script for online meetings. I was just wondering why we're saying now that the non-theistic recovery program, I don't care about non-theistic. The recovery program does not ask anyone to believe anything, only to trust the process. Where is that coming from?
It's directly from the Refuge Recovery book.
All right. This part about, I guess I'm okay with not believing anything. I understand the intention behind that. I'm thinking of it from people who have been maybe kind of piggybacking on Kelly's take here, is that people coming into the program with trauma have been told to believe things in the past before and proven to not be true, to be betrayed. So I'm a little uncomfortable with saying to trust the process. There's might be another way to say that gets the same message across.
Yeah, I hear you. And I'm open to your ideas about the wording, language. Language is important on many levels.
Well, I'll work on that. I haven't come up with anything right now, but I'll consider it. Thank you for being open to hearing me. The other one that in that same paragraph that says, when sincerely practiced, it will ensure a full recovery from addiction. Can we really say that? I mean, what is that? We will ensure.
Yes. Money back guarantee.
Okay.
That
very few guarantees in life. That's one of them. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And in the crosstalk statement, some of the meetings have put in that crosstalk is commenting on or offering advice or offering teachings to others at the meeting. And that's been dropped out of this. But I actually had long conversations with secretaries and group reps at many different meetings about members offering teachings. And I wondered why that got left behind, or maybe never was included. I don't know.
I think that my sense is that, offering advice covers offering teachings, and that teachings and advice are the same thing, and it's repetitive. And that a lot of what we were trying to do in this new script is to trim it down.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Leave more room for people to meditate and share with each other, and less script. So
right, and in that respect, I think it's done what it intended to do. So I appreciate the work and effort that's been given to doing it this way. All right, That's all I had with that. I haven't had a chance to look at the other ones, but that was the one that we used the most. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll see that they're all using that same opening section around trusting the process. And I like your question about it, and I think it's a very worthy question, because in the Refuge book, in many places, and right here in the script, we're saying like, hey, we're not asking for blind faith, but also there has to be some, in order to practice this, there has to be some encouragement and some trust, some confidence in this.
Well, I like the previous
wording. You won't even try it.
I like the previous wording, which had to do with many of us have found that this path works. And if you're willing to do the hard work, you will find this too, or you may find this too. Yeah. I mean, I like that it was anchored in direct experience, not in some general statement. It's less abstract. It's more grounded in personal experience, the way it was said before.
Yeah. I hear you.
Also, I had a question about all the different formats. Are we saying that we're having all these different kinds of meetings now, or what's going on with all those different scripts?
Yeah, an encouragement for Refuge Recovery to diversify from it's always this choose your own adventure, whatever meditation, whatever section of the book that's getting read over and over and over, to an encouragement to let's have more book studies where we go through the book as a group. Let's have more meditation studies where we take the meditation instructions sequentially, and each week we go through them so that if you come to this meeting, if it's your home group and you go every week, you'll get all of the meditations over the next 2 months rather than loving kindness every other week. Or meetings that are just focused on mindfulness, of like, hey, this is a Wednesday meeting where we're just doing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and we're deepening our insight through, in this meeting, investigating the 4 foundations systematically. So I, kind of propose this as I would love to see more diversity in the way that meetings are run, more speaker meetings, more book studies, more meditation studies, inventory studies. Let's take an inventory question and make that the topic. Love the way Refuge is going in this sort of general way where it feels like choose your own adventure, open to which is great. And that's become the standard, and it's how I originally created it. But I'd like to see some more kind of systematic meetings that are training us in this whole process, training the newcomers. Come to this meeting every week. You will learn this book. You will learn all of these meditations. You will learn, how to do this thing, and not just a kind of like based on the whims of the current person who's asked to read or lead the meditation.
Thank you. It makes it clearer. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Good to see you. Sebastian, go for it.
Hey, as always, I got a gang of questions, but one I was going to ask, pretty easy stuff, some softball stuff. Sometimes we lead these meditations, and I've done it, and I've heard other people say it, go into this thing of like 2 minutes to practice or 2 minutes of silence before we go into that. Is that a big deal?
Oh, they're actually reading the...
Yeah, kind of to let people know that it's going to be like 2 or 3 minutes of silence.
Right.
Kind of go into that.
It's not, the scripts weren't meant to do that, but I think it's okay if people say it, that it kind of gives people a warning. We're going to be quiet for the next 3 minutes. But they certainly were not designed for that. All of the stuff in the parentheses, the pauses, it'd be a little bit weird if people were like, and now bring your attention to your breath, pause. Yeah. 3 minutes of silence. So I feel like it's a little maybe awkward to name that, but I can also see that it's not so problematic or not going to make any rules around it, but it's not meant to be done that way.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Noah, can I comment about that?
Sure.
Some meetings chose to do that because some people get anxious or traumatized, either that they're new to the meeting and don't know what's going on, they think that they've been kicked off the meeting, or they're not used to those kind of silences. So some meetings that I know went ahead and said, we're going to announce that we're having 2 minutes of silence to put them at ease so they know what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind and generous intention behind that.
While we're on this topic, I have something kind of in the same vein. Is it okay to give a little pre-meditation instruction for new meditators before we begin reading the meditation from the book? So I noticed like on Richard's comment that they'll say like, we're going to read this. If this comes up, just sit through it. And there's going to be pauses and just breathe and focus on your breath. And if you have trauma and yada, yada, yada. Is that okay to do?
Not really. It's not really okay to do because it opens the door for people playing teacher that are not qualified. And although many people doing that might have really good advice and really gentle and altruistic and beautiful, well-informed advice, some people will give really bad advice. If we open it up to that kind of teaching, giving, and secretary telling people how to do it or how not to do it, or so it's actually not really okay to do that. It's the meditation is the meditation. In the most loving way, I tell everyone, stick to the scripts. Please stick to the script. And it's just for unity and to avoid some of the dangers of allowing it to be too loose and allowing what has happened in the past and will certainly continue to happen is that people won't be giving good advice. And that's why we're saying, like, don't give that kind of advice to each other, even though sometimes it will be good, sometimes it will not be good. So let's not do that, and let's just stick to the meditation script.
Yeah, so when you're saying stick to the script, you're specifically referring to stick to the meditation script, because when you actually look at the meeting script, we have a little bit more play with that based on the group's conscience, right? Two different things.
Yes, but it would also not be so cool for a meditation group to take a group conscience to say we're going to put this whole intro in. So when it comes to offering the meditation instructions, stick to the meditation script.
Thank you.
Misty, you're next.
Hi, guys. My concern is new meetings. Over a year ago, I started my meeting and I didn't get much instruction, and that was okay because I've ran a meeting in person before, and I came in with the reading picked out and the meditation picked out and ready to do the whole thing by myself. And I did quite a few times. My concern is that now it's evolved to a more complex meeting structure, and there's multiple jobs and multiple ways to be of service that people don't really know what we're doing because we haven't been doing it that long. Now, I feel like, we're new again, unfortunately. And I think a strong foundation is needed to grow these meetings properly. And we don't just, I was in a business meeting today where somebody new who hasn't been to many or any online meetings at all wanted to start a meeting, and they can't. I have concerns about that. I feel like somebody who wants to start and secretary a meeting should have some experience on Zoom in service as a door person or a contact person, so they know what a meeting looks like. They know what a business meeting looks like. They've been at those things. Otherwise, I feel like it's just going to grow, and people are going to leave and come back, and they're not going to, when it comes to a business meeting, they're not going to know what it looks like. And even though there are instructions on the website, I just think it's really important at this stage in Refuge Recovery to have an experienced base, even if we have to limit meetings we have 10 meetings, at a day, or 12 meetings a day. And this is what we have. This is what we're able to handle, so that we know that they're being ran properly.
I hear you. Mostly I would offer that you or anybody else who needs some help, Vanessa and Sebastian, especially in the online meeting world, Vanessa and Sebastian are available and engaged in training people and supporting people and how to do online meetings.
It's not that I need help. I don't need help. I can do the resources. I'm worried about other people that will need help and won't take it as seriously as I will.
Yeah.
And I even told Sebastian I need to go and print all that stuff out because I'm old school. I'll read it on paper. And so I know exactly what needs to look like, because there's been changes since when I started my meeting to now. I'm worried about the person who doesn't take it serious and just wings it.
Yeah, I don't think that there's I don't think that we're going to do that. I don't think we're going to limit meetings or tell people that they can't do meetings if they haven't jumped through a bunch of other hoops already. Refuge Recovery is based on the model of Alcoholics Anonymous and, of peer-led meetings, and of this model that says, any two addicts getting together to help each other is a meeting of recovery. And we have a killer structure, right? And we have the essential elements, and we have the guiding principles, and we have the how-to, and it's all really outlined. And from that place of we've offered what to me feels like a really good structure, that we have to actually trust people to show up with good intentions and to lead meetings in a good way, and to not get too hierarchical or too, we don't want to create a whole bunch of barriers to people being able to start meetings. We do have some suggestions around abstinence time. We do have some suggestions around, not suggestions, but, kind of policies around when people can vote in meetings. And so the structure is really, I think it's really good. I might be biased since I created the structure, but I think we have a really good structure, and that we should really be in an encouraging and trusting place, and not in a it has to be done perfectly all of the time. We have to have a loose guidance and support, and that's how these kind of self-help, mutual aid society recovery programs work best in my experience. And that's what we are, and that's what we're going to continue to be. And so, if people want to start meetings, they're welcome to start meetings. And if some of them fall apart or don't work out, that's part of it too. There's not a way to control that.
Okay.
So can I butt in for a sec too?
Sure.
Every new meeting does get a
Close that
training.
door, Barbara.
So every new meeting sits with Sebastian and I and goes through a training with it. And then pretty soon we're going to offer that training. We're going to open it up. So anyone who didn't get in that, the first, in the past, can have access to the same tools available. And so hopefully people take advantage of that.
Can I add something as well? So just that we have slowly but surely, and I think it's Noah has been very thoughtful about it, which is allowing and creating a space for support and conversation and education before meetings even start. So I'm the one who fields all the questions that come in, and I can say 100% at this point, 4 months into doing this, that I probably get 6 or 7 emails a day from someone, different people wanting to start meetings. And when I send them kind of our breakdown that we have, here's what we're looking for, here's what, this is the beginning steps, this is the process that we'd like you to go through. You have a one-on-one with Noah for 15 minutes. Once Noah approves, you get sent back. I put you in touch with Vanessa and Sebastian and other volunteers, and then you have to agree to, the essential elements and guiding principles. Like they have to go through a little bit of effort.
Okay.
And I can say for sure that about 5% of people actually make that first appointment with Noah. So if I get 10 people, one person maybe makes an appointment.
That actually is good to hear, because I was afraid. I mean, I want this to grow just as much as anybody, because I know it saved my life. And so I'm not saying I don't want it to grow. I'm just concerned, just anybody can come in and start a meeting and then poof, they're gone. And for the people who are going to that meeting, it could be traumatic for them, or at least, but thank you for that information. I wasn't aware of that.
And we're continuing to set up that kind of support system. But as Noah said, like anyone can set up a meeting if they want to do the work. It's just looking at, okay, you have to read over these things first. So there is a little bit of a hoop that you have to go through.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Is that okay, Noah, for me to say?
Yeah, it was great to say and to clarify. And I'll also add to that some of the people that I have meetings with that say they want to start meetings, I actually discourage them when I find out what's happening in their life and process. And I say, actually, why don't you just attend meetings for a few months before you start one? And sometimes I give people the thumbs up and say, yeah, you should totally do this. So there is, not only what Rebecca's saying, a kind of process where a lot of people aren't following through because they do need to get a little bit of training in order to do it that they don't want to have. Some of the times, after I talk to somebody and find out that they're not really quite in recovery yet, or brand new in recovery, or have other circumstances, sometimes I'll say, I think it might be better to wait for a bit. Just be a member for a while online, and then start a meeting later.
Cool. I got a username and a password, so I guess it's changed. Thank you.
Robert, you're next.
Thank you. I thought I was just going to come and listen, and thanks to Vanessa for sending me the audio of the last two of these sessions for some questions that I had a couple weeks ago. But I do actually have some additional questions, or a question and a hope. So hi to people I know and hi to people I have yet to meet. I'll start with the hope. I think it was addressed in one of the previous sessions that there's meant to be a group service representative from each meeting once meetings are back in person again, and that those group service representatives will attend some sort of area service so that information is disseminated throughout all the groups in an equal way. So I look forward to that time because I think that'll help address a number of issues that have arisen or that could arise. And perhaps there's something to say about that and where that's going, I don't know. But then the question just has to do with outside readings. And I only listened to the sections that Vanessa pointed me to in the last couple of these Q&As, so I didn't listen to the whole thing. But my question has to do with outside readings. I've been to a couple meetings where the secretary chooses to read something prior to the meditation that is inspiring to them that is not from the Refuge Recovery book. Great readings, but not from our conference approved literature. And then also sometimes when people are doing the reading for the week, sometimes they are reading something that is inspiring to them, but not necessarily from the Refuge Recovery book. So I just wanted to, if that hasn't been addressed, open up a conversation about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So the first thing around, group reps, and not just the in-person meetings, every online meeting should also have a group rep. And and we're still in process with this. It's not the whole structure and format of how we're going to organize the group reps and the regions and the interface with World Services is not clear yet, and be patient with us as we create this. But yes, the first step in that is that every meeting has somebody who has the service position of a group rep, and whether in person or online. So that's what we should be doing right now. We should be focusing on making sure that the meetings that you attend have group reps, even if they don't have much to do yet. They're partially there in support of the secretary and the group itself, and eventually they will have a broader role to help with the information and process of democratic structure building. The second thing is around the outside literature. I am aware that it happens, and as I believe everyone's aware, it is against our essential elements. And it shouldn't be happening. And if it's happening regularly, and if people want that to be happening, then on some level, it's not a refuge recovery meeting if it's using outside literature. And we have a very clear, in order for it to be a refuge recovery meeting, it needs to be based on the literature from refuge recovery and not outside literature. So I think the other question about that or process is like, well, then how do we skillfully communicate to the meetings that are doing this, or the people who may not know any better? Right, there's probably maybe two camps. There's people who are like, well, I didn't know any better, and I just thought it was like, I really like this book, so I was sharing something out of this book that I really like, and it's innocent, and they just need to be kindly and skillfully informed that although that's great and maybe that's a wonderful piece of literature, not to be brought into the refuge meeting. Keep that for your own inspiration, and not bringing that into the meeting. And then there's maybe other people who know that it's not okay and are doing it anyways, and then there needs to be a conversation, and at some point, if there's people who really want to do that, then unfortunately you can't do that and be a refuge recovery meeting. And it's a little bit like what I was saying before of people wanting to give some good advice before meditation. Sometimes it's great advice. It's the same thing with the outside literature. Sometimes it's going to be fine. It's going to be totally in line. I mean, people have even asked, hey, can we read Noah's other books in meetings? And the answer is no, you can't read. Even though I wrote Refuge, you can't read my other books in meetings. We're only doing the refuge recovery process in refuge recovery. And some literature might be totally in line with what we're doing. But if we open the door to outside literature, then nothing is going to stop people from reading the Bible in refuge recovery meetings, or the Quran, or some Buddhist stuff that is super whack, and is not in line with what we're doing. It would be, even if we said, oh, only, it has to be Buddhist, you could find a whole bunch of Buddhist literature that talks about drinking alcohol and it's not okay, right? Like, so it's just, it's not okay to read outside literature. And if you are in a meeting and that is happening and you're going to confront the person, please do so in as kind of a way as possible. And or let us know. I'm happy to have the conversations with people, and I'm not going to come down super authoritarian on anybody, but I'm happy to educate people and say, this is what is a refuge meeting and can happen in refuge meetings, and this can't happen and still be a refuge meeting. So
that's really helpful. Yeah. And it seems to me that once there's a service structure that's established, that will help empower group service representatives to be able to say to secretaries, just a reminder from World Services that came down at our last area service meeting, that we're only to use refuge recovery readings, or we're going to change all the pronouns to they, them, or whatever it might be, that'll sort of unify things across the board. Because right now, some people read the newsletters when they come out. Some people read the website, but some people are going on what they learned on how to run a meeting 3-4 years ago and haven't accessed any new information. So right. Thank you very much. It's helpful.
Which also points to the importance of having contact information for all of the secretaries and general and represent, group reps, so that we can actually make sure that they are receiving the communications, that we are in communication with them. Because like you said, there might be people who, are running on something from years ago and aren't even aware that what they're doing is not kosher anymore. Michelle.
Hey, hi everybody. So that kind of brings up, I had a question before, now I've got a secondary one, and I quote the book in my meeting, page 46, about having a positive intention being a protection against relapse. Is it kosher or appropriate to set an intention for the meeting? Like meet everything with kindness?
Where would you do that in the meeting? You'd put that in the script, or you would freestyle it?
I do have it in the script, and I have it. I just quoted partially what I have, and I quote the book and the page number. And then, but for the other meeting, I was thinking about doing it before the meeting officially starts, which may or may not be a kosher thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it would be okay if you're pulling stuff right out of the book. And not freestyling too much. So I think it would be okay. I think anytime we're pulling stuff out of the book and sharing that with the meeting, that it's okay. But as the secretary, you would need to take a group conscience to make sure that everybody in the meeting agrees that they want to add this to the script. Meeting secretaries are not allowed to edit the scripts by themselves without the process of the democratic process of the group agreeing to make changes to the script. So does that make sense? It could be okay.
Yeah, totally.
As long as the group agrees to it.
On the Sunday one, we did take a group conscience, and we've changed the script to the newly suggested one and decided to keep in that piece, so it was voted on, but I'll bring that up at the other meeting as secretary. My second question is about training, because it sounds like we're talking about online training, but as far as starting an in-person meeting, is there some sort of suggested spiel that I would want to give to a possible location in order to sell them letting us go there and have a meeting?
We've never created any kind of proposal to host a meeting spiel. I think it's really just left to the individual to go and say, hey, this is Refuge, this is what I'm doing, and can we rent the space, or would you be willing to host a meeting? Do you feel like it would be helpful if there was a script for that, or some kind of
you're talking about
something that was used?
Well, you're talking about like not freestyling, and then like that opens the door for kind of freestyling an approach, you know what I mean? So I know that I trust myself in what I would say, you know what I mean? But like, it might be helpful for other people in the future to just kind of go, hey, this is, what we're doing. And, I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, not I feel it feels very different. Like in a meeting, freestyling can really change the environment of the meeting. When we're as an individual member explaining to someone else what Refuge is, it probably could be some pretty whack interpretations. We're like this Buddhist cult that
yeah, right. Like you don't want to have people roll up with that.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know how to address that very well, but so the answer is we've never developed anything like that yet.
Okay.
My sense is you show them the book, you show them the website, you show them maybe the meeting format. I think that probably would be the best of saying, like, here's what we do. Here's our format. We do this, we say this, we meditate, we share with each other, and then you just kind of show the people exactly what it is that we do in the meetings. And that's probably all the information they really need.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome. Richard, jump in.
So this is kind of a new topic, but not really, because we've talked about it before, about branching out for groups that sort of falls in line with what Michelle was saying. Branching out with new groups into hospitals and institutions. They might be, I'm borrowing from my AA experience of many years, that they might be a different kind of format in those kinds of settings. I don't know if the board's up to date or wants to move on that yet, or if it's premature, and I don't want to push the river here, but I did want to bring it back up on the front burner because I have some inclination to go into the local hospitals and jails and introduce them to Refuge. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think that for the most part, you could stick with the essential elements and guiding principles while doing service in institutions. Maybe the one place that won't be as easy is the rotating leadership. You know, and maybe you'd actually take it for a longer period of time of saying, like, I'm going to bring this meeting into this jail for a year. And then after a year, I'm going to recruit someone else to do it, rather than, you know, and also I recently there was a person who was starting meetings, refuge meetings in the Chicago Cook County jails. And we were just discussing this, and they're doing it, they're bringing them in. Of not only the rotating leadership, but also their intention was, if possible, because at that particular institution, people were doing longer periods of incarceration, could we even get them trained on those units and have them actually lead the meetings rather than the person from the outside coming in and being the leader all of the time, of actually getting meetings going in institutions where it really is peer led by the inmates, by the people there. And so I don't think that World Services at this moment is ready to say this is how it's done, but an encouragement to explore that. And you know, if people like you and other people that are doing it will actually, you know, go in and do it and figure it out, and then report back how it's going and what are you running into? What are the issues or difficulties or you know, guiding principles that are challenged, or essential elements that feel challenged by doing the hospitals and institution works.
Sounds good. Thanks, Noah.
Well, Sebastian.
Back again. All right. So last month I had some questions about the fourth guiding principle, and I still got some more. I've been hanging out, you know, attending some of these new food meetings. So this is stuff that's kind of come up a couple times. So one of them is kind of like a two-parter, I guess. Can people that are dealing with food issues hold the service position but still drink? You know, if that's not my main thing, can I still have a glass of wine every once in a while since I'm really here for food, type of thing? And the other part of it is cool. All right, so it's a no. And then so then the other part of it was then why can alcoholics binge on food and hold service positions? Like sometimes maybe they go from, you know, dealing with their alcohol or substance abuse and then start turning towards food.
Refuge Recovery is based on Buddhism. Buddhism has the 5 precepts. The 5th precept is to abstain from all recreational drugs and alcohol. And we are all following this path that is an abstinence from recreational substances path. So no matter how our addictions are manifesting, whether it's food or sex or money or drugs and alcohol, we're all following this solution. This is an abstinence from recreational drugs and alcohol path, period. In order to hold a service position in Refuge Recovery, abstinence from recreational. That's the guiding principle there. Addiction, the way that we're doing it, is self-diagnosed. We get to decide. We have to admit when we have crossed the line from indulgence into addiction. And so this question about the, you know, recovering alcoholic substance abuse addict who is actually also in a food addiction, if that person has not become aware of that or acknowledge that, we don't get to diagnose like, hey, that sober person's a food addict. That sober person has to diagnose that themselves. Now, if they do, and they are utilizing and saying like, I want to be in recovery, and I have this bottom line behavior around this process addiction, and I'm not sticking with it, then that is considered a relapse, right? And all of us are, anybody addressing a process addiction is making their own bottom line. And no judgment about relapse. Relapse is part of the process for a lot of people, a lot of the time. But in order to hold the service position, and even like if there is a relapse, it doesn't mean that you can't, reestablish and continue to be of service. But if we're in that kind of if somebody's in that kind of relapse where they've kind of given up on the recovery for now, and they're really in the addiction, and they're not, trying to arrest it or trying to come back to the bottom line behavior. In that case, that person should not be taking that service position if they're in active addiction, even if it's a secondary active addiction, even if they're sober from drugs and alcohol, but they're in an active addiction that they're trying to address, but failing to maintain at this point. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's clear. Our commitment is abstinence from the recreational and adherence to the bottom line behaviors. But if someone hasn't made a bottom line behavior, we don't get to judge them and say, hey, you should have a bottom line behavior. And you're not living up to my standards of what your bottom line behavior should be.
I feel that. Thank you.
So like, just to, because like I'm trying to, like, the way we're talking about it is theory, right? And then like, if I think about it actually being put into practice, so let's say a real situation, and I don't know if this is a real situation. If it is, I'm sorry. But so let's say I have I'm a secretary for a sex addiction meeting. We'll go sex because no one has that meeting yet. Secretary for sex addiction meeting. And I have a glass of wine once a month. I lose my service position. Yes.
I hate for it to sound punitive, but if you're having a glass of wine, you shouldn't be secretarying a meeting. You're not adhering to the essential elements and the guiding principles. So I don't think somebody should fire you from that. You should just acknowledge that I'm not doing this thing, and so therefore I shouldn't be secretarying a meeting in this thing, because our thing is abstinence based, whether you're an alcoholic or not. No wine, period. And it's fine, like if people want to do that, but to do this and to support people in this, if you're drinking, using any sort of recreational, then you should not be secretarying a meeting, period. That is our guiding principles. That is part of our essential elements. That's what it means to be engaged in refuge recovery and hold a service position in refuge recovery.
So if I was going to Overeaters Anonymous, I'm trying to think of this in the big container that we've made of like, all are welcome, so if I go to Overeaters Anonymous, I don't know what their thing is, but I think you're allowed to do other stuff if you want to, just abstain from your overeating process addiction. So like, aren't we kind of like, by saying like you can't have a glass of wine, like really kind of closing the door on a huge proportion of people that are like, well, I have a problem with that, but like, I don't know, like it seems a little, I understand where we're coming from, and I like get it because I'm an alcoholic, but like I also think that like, isn't it kind of limiting? Like there might be someone who actually has a meeting right now that had a glass of wine tonight with their dinner, and they're like, shit, I have to give up my position. Like, I don't know. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around that one.
I get it. And this is, and I hate to do this because it sounds religious, but this is the Buddha's teaching, that in order for this path to work, people have to be sober, whether you're an addict or not. This is his teaching. The fifth precept is, if you want mindfulness and compassion and forgiveness to really take root in your heart, There's no place for recreational drugs and alcohol. And this has always been his teaching, and this is Buddhism. We are basing Refuge on Buddhism. We are going to adhere to that 5th precept for everyone that wants to utilize this path. And I feel passionate about that. And we're not going to water it down, and we're not going to change the Buddha's teachings around this.
Isn't it so subjective though? Because couldn't nicotine and caffeine be considered recreational drugs?
Not from the Buddhist perspective, no. It's the substances that lead to heedlessness and that block the ability to be mindful. And so sugar and nicotine and, again, like as addicts, people can turn sugar into a heedlessness, right? We can become addicted to it. People can turn nicotine and caffeine and probably, other minor stimulants into heedlessness. But the Buddha's teaching is it's drugs and alcohol, and nicotine and caffeine get a sort of pass. But although, I was speaking to someone the other day, I think that it would be wonderful to have a nicotine refuge meeting. So many people suffer so much about recovering from nicotine addiction, and that it would certainly be something that the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path could help people recover from nicotine addiction. It's not part of the precepts, but it's certainly part of addiction, just like sugar is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Richard, do you have a last word? Last one, we'll end here. No, your hand is just still up, okay. I hope that this Q&A was useful. Happy to see everybody, happy to connect some, and see you next month if more questions are up or things to discuss. And join me on the first Thursday for the Refuge class, where I actually do some guided meditation and some teaching, and hope to see you at some meetings, and go start some new meetings, go start some in-person meetings now that the world is reopening. And please, if you can, let us know in your area what meetings are happening, what meetings are not happening. We really need to clean up our listings, because we're not sure what meetings are going to restart and which ones aren't. And it's a whole post-COVID dilemma of the listings on the meeting page. So help us if you can. If you have information, send us emails at admin@refugerecovery.org.
There's also, if you have any questions between now and the next Q&A that you want answered, you can send them to questions@refugerecovery.org. Also, if you'd like a question asked at this Q&A live anonymously, please also send it to that same email address, questions@refugerecovery.org.
May any goodness that comes from our discussion be shared for the benefit of all addicts trying to recover, and together may we create a positive change on this planet. So thank you, and see you next time.